Here we go again.
Oh, no, not again.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Dom, how long have we been doing this?
Once more unto the breach, dear friends.
Again and again and again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews and connections in mind. Pixar's Soul is the latest film from Disney Pixar and is dropped on Disney Plus this Christmas weekend. And it's directed by Pete Docter and stars the voice talents of Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey. And this film revolves around Jamie Foxx as Joe Gardner, a middle school music teacher who has dreams of being a famous jazz musician. He finally gets his big chance, however, before he can actually do it, he falls down a manhole and finds himself as a disembodied soul on his way to the great beyond. He doesn't want that, so he finds his way out of the path to the great beyond and finds himself in the great before, a place where new formed souls are on their way down to Earth, which is where he wants to go. However, in order to get there, he gets paired up with a soul who just doesn't want to go. Soul 22, voiced by Tina Fey, and together they have to work together to get their respective goals, and in the process, they'll learn some profound things as well. This review will contain some spoilers later on about the movie, but first I'm going to give my spoiler-free thoughts on Pixar's Soul. Is it worth the Disney Plus subscription if you don't have it already? And if you do, is it worth hitting play on your Disney Plus app? To both those questions, I would say yes. Just as with any Pixar film, really, it's worth watching just for the visuals alone, and also the music. This is just such an imaginative world. Pixar does a good job with doing creative worlds and trying to, even if a sort of environment has been done before, like even though the great beyond or the great before, we can describe it as heaven or limbo in a sense. These environments have been done before in various things, but this is a new type of take, a very imaginative take, and just they get away with so much with just simplified character design. You gotta wonder how they actually do it, where they can be so these figures can be so expressive with just no nose, just bare faces. There's blue blobs essentially, but you get a lot of emotion out of them, and it's great, and they do a great job. And the music as well. The main character, Joe Gardner, is a jazz musician, and that kind of music permeates this whole movie. And even if you're not a humongous jazz person, the music is just so darn good. You gotta appreciate it for what it is, and I think that does a great job. Also, Jamie Foxx and Tina Fey, they have, even as just voices, they have great chemistry together, and they work well off each other. They've got there's a lot of slapstick sort of things going on throughout this, and sort of sitcom situations, and they do a good job with between them of selling these situations that we've in different situations, but we've sort of seen throughout through various Pixar things. And again, they've done such a good job. Really, my main knocks on this film are the fact that other films, there is a message to be had in this film. There's sort of a pull heartstrings moments, and the big the moral reveal at the end, I'll say. And while this film does have it, other films have done it the same message before. And as far as a message goes, it feels like other Pixar films have done it better. And it's sort of a shame because Pixar, because they set the bar so dang high with their standards with films such like Inside Out or Toy Story 3 or things like that, and it feels like when they set the bar so high, when a Pixar film comes out that is just good, that's almost seen as a failure, and it's not. This is still a good film. It's still worth seeing, but as far as a Pixar film goes that's supposed to tug the heartstrings, your mileage may vary. Maybe you'll tell me in the comments below if I'm just cynical or not, but in my opinion, this struck fine, but it felt like, and I'll get into my spoiler thoughts later on this, but it felt like this film took 90 minutes to get to a point that was summed up in one sentence by another movie, and that was almost unintentional in that movie. So, for me, this was an okay experience. I still don't regret watching it. I find it was great. It was a reasonable watch, but as far as Pixar films goes, like I said, because the bar is set so darn high, this film ends up suffering as a result, and that's almost unfair, but then again, Pixar, they kind of did that to themselves. So, if I was going to answer the question, this film is worth seeing, but if I was going to give Pixar's Soul a letter grade, I would say this is a solid B. Definitely a film worth watching, but as far as breaking into that top tier of Pixar films, sorry, I don't think this one quite cuts it. So, those are my main spoiler-free thoughts on Pixar's Soul. Now let's get into some spoiler talk, where I give some analysis as certain plot developments and character arcs that may seem familiar to you, and where you may have seen them before. There was one aspect of this film that I kind of glommed onto as being really familiar to me, and that's when, about maybe the end of the first act, when Joe Gardner and 22 actually find a way of getting back to Earth, but an error happens in transit, and 22 ends up in Joe Gardner's body, and Joe Gardner ends up in a cat's body, and then they have to figure out a way how to get 22 back into the Great Before and get Joe's soul back into his body. And that sort of reminded me of Monkeybone, in the sense of Brendan Fraser's character and the stop-motion character Monkeybone are trying to get a pass to exit out of, I guess, Dreamland or whatever that is, where he's in a coma, and Monkeybone, in fact, gets the pass first and gets into Brendan Fraser's body, but Brendan Fraser managed to get back also, but in the body of an athlete that broke his neck. That is sort of, and then slapstick ensues there, and most of the slapstick occurs from Soul 22 not knowing Joe's life, and Joe having to coach 22 through various situations in that regard. But also, as I alluded to earlier, the main message of this film is that the spark of life is not a purpose, it's not a job, it is in fact life, and living it to the fullest through various things, even the most mundane things give you life meaning. I feel like this 90-minute movie could be best summed up by Ferris Bueller, who, when he said, "Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it." Yeah, that about sums it up. And I'm sorry to say that, but that, to me, it feels like that one sentence encapsulated the whole message of this movie. And again, maybe you felt it differently, and maybe I'm just cynical, but to me, that it didn't pull the heartstrings quite as much as some other Pixar films. And also, I will say, this film, one of the big problems of this film is that while the main antagonist of this film, there is a personified antagonist film, but the main threat to our main characters is sort of abstract, in that Terry, the bean counter, notices that Joe's soul didn't actually go into the Great Beyond, and his count is off, so he's trying to get Joe's soul to go back in line and go to the Great Beyond and fix his count. But the real threat is death before your time, I guess. And I feel like as an abstract threat, again, other Pixar films have sort of done that better, and such as like Inside Out, where the main threat is really just your emotions running away, getting the better of you, or certain emotions taking over, and I feel like that worked better. And how this is resolved is, it felt like that was more of the tie up a loose end, rather than that was in the way of a happy ending, rather than you could have faced the the big question where this movie ends with 22 actually making it to Earth and Joe actually, realizing that, no, I had a good life, now it's time for you to live yours, and then he actually goes into the great beyond, and 22 somehow, they kind of explain that you forget a whole bunch of stuff, but 22 somehow remembers their experience in the great before and remembers Joe, and then uses his example as throughout their life, and says, hey, here's how I'm living my life because of this guy taught me a lesson. But no, it's just, no, hey, you got the second chance, and oh yeah, this threat, oh yeah, just go away. That was my main gripe about this movie, is that the main threat just kind of went away. But yeah, those are my main thoughts on Pixar's Soul. What did you think of the movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Did you find a comparison that I missed? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd like to see them. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Also on my channel, be sure to look for my review of Wonder Woman 1984 up there, as well as my continuing review and reaction of each and every episode of Season 3 of Star Trek Discovery. Be sure to look for that, as well as coming up, we're in the last few days of 2020. I'll be preparing my best and worst of films of 2020, and films and TV shows of 2020. It feels like there's a lot to be worst of 2020, and don't get me wrong, but there's some good stuff too. I'll be covering that. Be sure to look for that, see what I come up with. And if you like this video or any other video on my channel, please give me a like, share, and especially a subscribe. I'd very much appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching, but just remember, there is nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before.